mitigate the impact of the pandemic, schools will not only have to remodel and reimagine the way teaching and learning have happened so far, but will also need to induce a suitable method of delivering quality education through a healthy mix of schooling at home and schooling at school. In the upcoming panel discussion, industry stalwarts will discuss the roadmap for digital classroom and online examination, evaluation, and assessment. I would like to invite Mohammad Ujale, Senior Assistant Editor, ET Government, to moderate the discussion. Over to you, Ujale.
Hello and very warm welcome to this special panel discussion focused on digital classroom, online examination, evaluation and assessment. I'm Mohammad Ujale, Senior Assistant Editor with ET Government. As you know that the pandemic has created an unprecedented challenge for the delivery of education across school, colleges and university. And what it has forced that there is a broader understanding within education community that they are demanding to create a kind of agile, scalable, resilient digital ecosystem that is able to securely provide continuity of learning, ability to conduct examination and evaluation process. And to do this, both center and state government, along with the university and education institution across the country, are making necessary investment in technology and policy to strengthen digital infrastructure, online teaching platforms, and e-content. To understand these emerging trends and why we need to create a digital foundation centered on empowering students and staff with the right sets of tools and technology and digital experience, I'm joined by Mr. B. Kalyan Chakravarti, Principal Secretary, Higher Education with Government of Assam, Mr. Asangba Chuba, Secretary, Education Department from Government of Bihar, Ms. Priti Malik, Head Growth Business at VBox. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. And let me begin with Mr. Chakrabarti. Sir, what we realized that during the pandemic, we observed that there was huge challenge on, especially on the continuity of learning and conducting examination and evaluation process, because it was locked down. People were not actually going out, and most of things actually moved to online. And also we realized that, some of the organization that had some level of integrated digital platform, they were able to provide some level of continuity in learning quite well. Would you like to share your experience as to how did you look at the mitigating the challenge of continuity of learning during the pandemic?
So firstly, let me say that I look after elementary, secondary, higher and technical, not just higher education. So, the challenges with school education were much more than the challenges with higher education during the period of lockdown. The lockdown, of course, came as a sudden black swan. It's a sudden shock. We didn't realize that this lockdown would actually pan out this way. So the first reaction, I think, not just mine, but across all the education departments, was to start collecting the telephone numbers of the teachers so that we could actually communicate with them. Then WhatsApp turned out to be the first thing that we thought we should do. Of course, quickly we realized that because of the digital connectivity, the lack of internet, and the digital divide between children who are poor and rich, the families, that we need to go beyond this connectivity by WhatsApp and telephone. We use medium like TV, the radio. We also, in fact, in the state of Assam, we try to send teachers to some sort of training in their own villages. 3-4 people at social distancing to the track. We of course try to understand as to how we can provide this kind of connectivity over a period of time. So exploration of various means of technology to actually get across to the children. We were also fortunately we had our own studio. Some of the schools were connected by VSAT. We had one-to-one connectivity in some of the schools. We started developing in the digital medium. A lot of innovations were tried out during that period of time. But having said that, a lot of it, one is of course the digital connectivity, and the second is of course the teachers drive to reach the children was very important. So I think it was a learning experience. The first it was a learning experience, but over a period of time we have learned how to go about it, and we have come to realize during this period, I can just say in the last 10, 20 seconds, that we realized that digital communication, distance communication, blended learning are not like are not new are here to stay, and and we need to develop methodology of teaching this. Good also because in a way we are reaching out to future skills. We learn a lot of things as to what we are doing wrong with education. We also learn a lot of things by which we can build this bridge between our children who are doing traditional learning to doing future learning. So in a sense, it had a positive and negative impact, negative effects, the lockdown. And I think we are better off from the learning that we had in this lockdown.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'll come back to you again. I'll go to Mr. Choba. As Mr. Chakravarti was mentioning that initially it was a bit challenge given the fact that nobody has seen this kind of pandemic before. So for everybody, it was a learning. So whatever the IT infrastructure any government organization had, they tried to somehow juxtapose and use those infrastructure to deliver services, even government services, education. How has been your experience, especially in Bihar? Because we notice even the bigger boards such as CBSE, they actually struggle to find out a balance as to how to do evaluation, how to do marking, how to actually move from one stage to the next stage.
First of all, thank you for having me on this panel discussion. And I think, first of all, I must say that the topic for today's discussion is probably we are discussing one of the most challenging aspects of probably the future of the country, because this is something which is affecting not only the present generation, but I think in the years to come, this is going to be a big challenge for all of us, keeping in mind that naturally the children are the future of this country. So having said that, I think as far as school education is concerned, I think Mr. Kalyan Chakrabarti has already mentioned the challenges that we face. But when you look at the higher education, and especially in a state like Bihar, where for all practical purposes, in most indices, the state is pretty low in most of the parameters. Whether you look at the internet coverage or people having access to, various IT facilities, etc. So this is obviously a huge challenge for us, and also the sheer numbers that the department and the government had to face during the pandemic period was something which I think it was unforeseen and probably unprecedented also.
Right.
But then, having said that, the challenges were met with a lot of innovation, and whatever resources that were at the disposal of the government, we have utilized it. School education, in a way, I would say, is slightly different from higher education, because in school education, you have a system where one policy or one decision can affect most of the schools or the institutions.
Right.
In higher education, it's a different it's a different ballgame altogether. We have universities who function autonomously. You have institutions who function autonomously. They have their own governance systems in place, different timelines for conducting the assessments, and even in some cases, even different systems of conducting assessments. So, and then at the same time also, they had most of the institutions, if you look at the universities, they are in various stages of development as far as the IT capability is concerned. So you have institutions who have done fairly okay as far as adjusting to the challenges of the COVID pandemic. And then we have, on the other extreme, we have those institutions who are really highly challenged, and they could hardly do anything as far as meeting the challenges are concerned, and they are still struggling to this day. I must be frank in my opinion to say that. So this is, I would say, the spectrum is quite large. Whereas you have some institutions who are really doing well. If you look at the country level also, I'm sure we have institutions who have done really extremely well.
Right.
Maybe some of the private universities, they have really caught up probably with the best of best technologies that are available in the entire world, I would say.
Right.
Then on the other end of the spectrum, we have universities in places like, you can take the example of my own state in Bihar, where, the rural-based universities, where because of the infrastructure or because of the traditional backwardness, the capacity to adjust to the changing circumstances is really difficult. So I would say that this is, as an opening remark, I would say that it's
Right.
been a mixed kind of experience that we've had, in spite of the fact we have tried our best to, make the necessary interventions. So I think that's my opening comment on this.
Yes, I'll come back to you again. Now I'll go to Ms. Preeti. Couple of things, Ms. Preeti, is very clear that the pandemic created a kind of different challenge, and some of the organization, and then there was a disparity of using technology. Some of the organization which had some integrated platform, they were able to utilize to continue whatever service they were providing for their business continuity plans. But large chunk, as Mr. Chuba was saying, that school education especially is something where one policy decision could impact the entire chain of different school altogether. And there was huge impact. And as earlier I said that especially on continuity and on evaluation, it was a huge challenge. I mean, people were not able to find out the exact balanced way of actually evaluating, because you are moving from a traditional method to a completely a digital method, and nobody has any other options, right? Since your organization works across different government departments, you work in different geography, would you like to share, based on your experience during the pandemic, especially working with some of the government organization, what was your experience? How did you enable some of your customers, and what was their journey actually?
Thank you, Jaleji. First of all, namaskar, Shri Chuba sir, Shri Chakravarti sir. So what we've heard from Shri Chakravarti sir and Shri Chuba sir is the challenges that the state faced, the government faced. And I would like to show you the other side of the scene, the challenges that the technology company also faced. So when this whole thing came to technology companies like us, how is the education sector segment different from all the other online exams that we've done for more than a decade? If you look at an education segment like the school or a university, they'll have multiple streams, multiple subjects, multiple types of questions. So as a technology company, we quickly had to excel ourselves, learn the process of matching the subject versus students versus stream versus various questions. And any board, a state board, we spoke about CBSE, about any of the universities, the biggest fear that the examination department has is the security of the question paper. So the minute they're giving the question paper to technology on the cloud, the control of examination, the examination feel that I'm out of control. The question paper is going out of my desk. So to give the whole security angle was the whole aspect that we have developed. We developed a two-factor authentication. We developed a security system where the person's GPS location could be tracked, IP address could be tracked, face recognition can happen at who is uploading the question paper. So we quickly had to align ourselves, synchronize ourselves with the education sector's needs. And also, there is a very important factor that the education sector has, subject answers. Every answer or every main exam that you would give just cannot depend on multiple choice questions. They would have subjective answers. How would a student sitting in a remote location during pandemic give out subjective answers to the evaluators? So we had to bring in scanning of the answer sheet using the mobile device, uploading scanned answer sheets for the evaluator to evaluate. And we've done almost 9 to 10 million answer sheet scanning or answer script scanning for institutes like IIT, IIM, for very reputed institutes like BITS Pilani, IPU, which is Indraprastha University, AKTU. In fact, we've done very large scale exams for one of the state's largest board, which is Board of Technical Education, Uttar Pradesh. And all this was managed in a span of jiffy, which means there's no time to think. We just had to run on our feet and enable our technology to suit the most remotest location of each state. And of course, it was a tough time, but a winning time. And we had actually given our support to multiple states across the country and even outside the country.
Right.
Many other countries who utilize technology from India to ensure that the education or the assessment goes smooth. So that was most of the support that we've given to the education side.
Right. Absolutely. I think you mentioned very important point that it was not only for the government that they were looking for technology and they were facing problems. Somebody has it, somebody did not have it, but also for the private organization, a service provider. I mean, scalability, security, all those things you mentioned was quite important. And then making sure that if a government organization, education board needs it, you are able to provide everything the way it should be. So now I'll go to Mr. Chakravarti. Mr. Chakravarti, what we, as earlier you were mentioning that, somehow the technology came in handy, quite handy, and you are able to actually use it. So that has become a broader understanding now. Now, the education department people, especially into the education sector, they are realizing that the future is going to be hybrid. I mean, there will be, even if it is not hybrid, you should be ready to adopt hybrid. If something goes in that way, you should be able to provide. And therefore, agile and scalable digital ecosystem that can support education has become important. In that education ecosystem, your digital classroom, your evaluation that could be done online, all those things are integral part of it. I would like to understand from you, is there anything that your organization, the government is doing, especially on creating a digital ecosystem which is able to support, which is able to help government organization in future in any emergency situation?
Let me just start by saying that I was fortunate that we started creating a digital kind of content sometime even before the onset of the unfortunate COVID pandemic. So we were creating a digital content in terms of the teachers, etc. And we had the number of videos we had created even before Nishta came into government of India, had where they had asked us to upload the videos of the teachers teaching concepts. We had already started preparing these concepts and the lecture modules. And but Assam is one of the most complex regions in the country, where it's just not the three languages that the outside world is aware of, like Assamese, Bodo, and Bengali. Assam has a number of languages. So now with ADP, so we had to also translate these videos into various languages. And we have to do it from the first we did it for the secondary classes, now we have to do it also for the elementary classes. In fact, we are also now thinking of the nursery classes, because the skill set is different as to how to teach the kids at different stages. So that we had prepared. The second thing that we did was initially we had ESAT kind of technology in order to reach out to some schools, but obviously it was a very low percentage of schools. Then we also had internet connectivity to the maximum number of schools we could. Then we thought of a methodology as to how we need to reach out to the children, and we thought that, okay, let us try to create something called the backbone of the SAM. Schools called, and we call it the challenge schools, where we will provide all this connectivity and all these digital technologies. And around this backbone, we will cluster the remaining schools. So the backbone would consist of approximately 1,000 schools. And around these 1,000 schools, each of these schools will have a cluster of another 30, 40 schools, which will learn from that. So I covered the whole state in terms of about 40,000 schools. So we try to adopt a strategy as to how we can provide education through a clustering model of schools. But the backbone of those clusters will be about 1,000 schools, which will have all the facilities as far as digital technologies are concerned, the best of teachers. And we had to train the teachers. We had to get digital badges to the teachers. The teachers have to be enabled to understand, okay, this is how we need to teach in a blended manner. We have to understand the technology. When do they stop? How do we really give this kind of, and how do they understand how to download, how to explain something which is coming in, how to search for the right material, what are the things they need to learn. So we introduced something called the digital badges in association with Tata Institute of Social Sciences and various other things. Like, we have a number of NGOs like CSF, the Square Foundation, Pratham, and a number of leading NGOs who are also supporting us in doing this. Of course, during the process of doing this digital technologies, we also used a lot of digital initiatives. For example, attendance of teachers. Earlier, We used to have biometrics. We don't need biometrics today. Like, we just can take selfies of them. Once they take a selfie in their school, we know where's their location and whether they're in school. So the technology has improved so much.
Right.
Like, we introduced that. We introduced checking of inspections. Earlier, the checking would be manual as to whether the school has been constructed or not. Today, the checking is digital. So we started introducing. We started understanding the importance of digital technologies right from filing system, e-office, to inspections, to attendance, to digital content, to enablement of the teachers in terms of how to teach. So the entire digital initiatives have taken a huge, let's say, jump
Right.
in the state of Assam. Fortunately, Government of India also have funded us reasonably. Probably the kind of financial support that the Government of India has given to the state of Assam and the Northeast is more than the rest of the country in terms of ratios, I would say, and is one of the highest. So basically, a lot of things have gone. In fact, I would like to say we have also come out with digital initiatives for children with special needs. We have designed an app by which teachers learn how to understand that a child is different, specially enabled. We also have made videos and teaching materials for teachers by which they are able to teach children with special needs. It was not done before, and each teacher has to go through that. At least one teacher per school has to understand how do I reach out to a child with special needs. So we were able to do that. We introduced something called personalized adaptive system in an experimental mode. Because see, normally a teacher, even in a conventional classroom, when he teaches 5 students and they do well, he is happy. He is not concerned about the last child in the class or the children who are at the bottom 20%. He's not aware of, and he doesn't know whether they're performing well or not. He's happy, 5 or 6 children are able to do math or do reading. Now, in a personalized adaptive system, we are trying to see, at least if the class is digitally enabled, whether the last child has also understood the concept or not. The learning would be more uniform, more equal conceptually, and would reach out more intensively to the child, to all the children, and not just the so-called bright children that he has. And evaluation of the teacher, both in terms of his learning, evaluation of child, has become much better with digital technology.
Right.
The issue is that I can't reach everybody, and therefore I have to use a clustering model. But we have tried to utilize the bandwidth of technology in order to reach out.
Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right, especially during the pandemic. There has been some highly positive learning wherein the digital transformation agenda of different government departments, including the education one, have accelerated, and people have realized that something that they were not able to do earlier, they were not even thinking to do in digital form. They experimented, and now they know there are touch points that they can actually track, they can work out, and digital is one of the easiest way of actually doing it. I'll go to Mr. Chuba now. Sir, one thing is very clear based on our discussion that hybrid learning is going to be a future. And the universities, colleges, our schools will try to get themselves ready with the necessary IT infrastructure which is needed to provide the hybrid learning. Would you like to share as to what primarily in a school education department in Bihar you are doing, especially in terms of bolstering the IT infrastructure so that the continuity of learning could be continued in case of pandemic?
Well, I think my first take on this is that the concept of a blended learning or hybrid learning is, I would say, it's pre-pandemic. And I think NEP 2020 also mentions it quite clearly. And in fact, they've defined certain parameters for that too. So it's not that this is not a new kind of a thinking.
Right.
What the pandemic has done, it has given it a boost. In fact, it was like a booster shot, and it really made everyone realize what it is and what it should be. And probably it was, if you look at it from that perspective, probably the pandemic has done maybe one of the few good things that the pandemic has made us realize is this. Right. So in a way, if you look at it positively, then this is something which the pandemic has done. But then having said that, again, I'll come back to the point which I was making, that it's not an easy thing to do. You have a situation where people are used to very traditional forms of ways of learning, and having a sudden jump into, a very technology-based kind of a scenario, it's going to be challenging. And especially again, I refer to the state of Bihar, where the digital reach is very, very low. And in a situation like this, for example, just a couple of figures that I can say, the NSS National Sample Survey of 2018 says that only 4.6% of people in Bihar have computers, which computers means the entire gamut of gadgets that comes under the definition of computers. And even internet outreach is only the 15.6. Maybe during this in the COVID pandemic period, maybe it has increased a bit because people found the necessity to increase it. But then I don't think the increase would be so much that it will make such a huge difference. So the question now is that we have basically, when we talk about blended learning or hybrid learning, there are two components in this. One is the hardware component, which is basically the infrastructure. Right. And the second part is the software component, which is the content. Now, in both aspects, we have to see, first of all, how do we deliver the infrastructure? For example, in Bihar, we have more than 70,000 plus, we are talking about school education, more than 70,000 plus schools. Now, how do we, make, and then the number of students in the schools are in the millions. Now, how do we ensure that each and every child gets access? Because when you talk of IT, and especially when you talk of IT through certain hardware or gadgets, it is a personalized thing now. Now, providing, theoretically, it's very easy to say that कि हर बच्चे को tablet दे दो या कुछ smartphone दे दीजिए या computer दिलवा दो. But then doing it is a different ballgame altogether now. Absolutely. How do we do it? Now, second thing is, so that is a huge challenge. The state, or for that matter, when I say the state, I'm talking about the entire government, central as well as states. We don't have the wherewithals to be able to fund such a huge, kind of a thing. And I think this is a challenge which not only Bihar, but I think every state also will face. Right. The second thing is now, even if we do deliver the hardware, then the next part is the content, the software part of it. Now, how do we deliver that? There has to be uniformity to some extent. Again, I come back to the point saying that school education probably, because we have set curricula, there are not too many boards and across the country. So and then within that, there's a lot of uniformity even today. But when you talk of higher education, where we have a multiple number of courses, and even the courses vary between universities, the metrics is just very complex. Right. And I think that Pretty Ma'am was saying earlier regarding how they really had to do it. It must have been a very arduous task, because for us, even if you put two universities together and try to compare their curricula, there's a huge difference in that in many cases. Now, how do we adjust that? How do we make sure that there's uniformity? NEP 2020 also talks about uniformity. So I guess somewhere down the line, we will try to work towards finding solutions. And I think this is something which time will bring, because like the pandemic made all of us realize that this is the need of the hour and this is what we should be moving towards. So I think, in my opinion, we are moving in the right direction. What we need is, I feel, a whole lot more of investment in the education sector as well, as far as providing these means of education to our children.
Yeah, you are absolutely right, and I completely agree with you. And especially on the hardware, somebody who had the hardware, somebody who had the content, they also faced the third challenge, ensuring the quality. I mean, not only in India, and this was across the world. I mean, organizations like Khan Academy, which is highly popular in online content delivery, they face actually ensuring the empathy that you have one-to-one when you deal with a student, the quality that you deliver. So you're right on those parts. With Ms. Preeti, I'll come to you now. Few things are very much now clear that during the pandemic, we all faced a lot of problems. Technology actually helped us. And then there are some structural issue across the country in different parts in terms of the internet connectivity, the access to the hardware, and then access to the content also. Okay. And some of the innovation is happening. And what we have realized over the last 5-7 years that, people are actually adopting, especially on content part, the cloud technology, wherein with a very less amount of investment, you are able to reach out to the large set of the people to deliver the content. If you have a decent level of hardware presence. Would you like to share based on your experience as to how you look at how actually, the emergence of cloud technology and the application that we have built around it and the content that we have created, possibly those could be utilized?
So as Chuba sir has mentioned, he's absolutely right. Pandemic has trained us that digitalization should not be stopped. We cannot wait for tomorrow to come. The pace cannot get slowed down. It has to on. It has to continue. And also, if you look at states like Assam, they have put in all the efforts to develop videos, to develop online content. They made the backbone of schools. So post-pandemic, when we're looking at a hybrid model of learning, where does all this content go? How does state secure their content? How does state make sure the content goes to the most credible student? Which means if the student has the right credentials, the login ID password given by the state, only that student should have access to that content. How does state take care of all these things? The answer is LMS, Learning Management System. Put all your content in the cloud. Make sure that the most comprehensive content library is managed by a learning management system. That could be any system across the globe. And this learning management system should have access for the teacher from home, for the student from home. We need not wait for a pandemic to come. If you look at Chennai today, there is no pandemic. It's completely flooded. All the students and teachers have gone back home. Again, the schools and colleges have now gone to a lockdown situation. So what happens if a state faces a natural calamity of that's what Chennai is facing today? What is the state's readiness? The state would have to adopt, or the center would have to adopt technology like LMS, where you have everything inbuilt. You have all the internal assessments inbuilt. And in fact, if you look at VBox, we have integrated our remote proctored features with world-class LMSs. Look at Canvas. Out of India, we've just done the remote proctored integration so that our assessment reaches those LMS countries as well. So why not in our country? Why not in our states where state can, as the way Assam has to create a whole system on the cloud, why not integrate an assessment platform within that software itself? Bihar is wanting a solution for the higher education segment. Every other subject, there are multiple common subjects in the university. Higher education community can put in a pool and come into a comprehensive content where the internal assessment can happen completely online. We need not go back to pen and paper internal assessment. Every family in India has a handheld device, the smartphone. Every family, need not every child. And the family will have to lend out that smartphone to the child for the internal assessment where the child gets used to technology and the child of a remote segment gets equal to a metro child. How are we going to upgrade the children to a metro child? How are we going to reduce the difference between the child of a B category town to an A category town by just exposing them to the digital world? So here, our reach to the central government and the state government is that focus on your distance learning online video universities, and please continue online education, online assessments with those children so that it can culminate and it can percolate to the regular ones as and when the time goes by. So I think it's time that the whole country adopts the hybrid method of education.
Right. I think you mentioned about the remote proctoring, so I'll come to that. In the national education policy also, there is focus on promoting the next generation technologies, especially, the technology which is going to create a lot of jobs, which is going to make our lives easy. For example, artificial intelligence, machine learning, IoT, AR and VR. Mr. Chakrabarty, I would like to understand from you, and the Niti Aayog is also focusing a lot in terms of promoting next generation technology in school, colleges and all. Under Atal Mission, they have actually, they are pushing that schools should open at least 3D printing just for the familiarity of the young kids so that they can inculcate, the tech value in the beginning itself, and they are able to actually work on that. Would you like to share, Mr. Chakrabarty, as to how you look at the next generation technology roles within education, because there is a lot of focus on data science, analytics, artificial intelligence and all. And those are also an integral part of our education policy.
Very importantly, I would think that, the children as right from the elementary, secondary stage onwards, just in the higher education, have to focus on the new technologies. Somehow, there are two aspects to this. I would like to look at it. Most of the earlier education was for the purpose of disciplining a child, was about learning by rote and all those things. This you have heard many a time. I would like to repeat that. And today we are focusing more on critical thinking. We are focusing more on a backless school, more on internships, less on academic kind of vigor and information kind of vigor, to more about practical training, understanding, and those kind of. So I think that's very important. And added to that is, we are definitely a nation in which the service sector is always done well, and we need to really focus on the future technologies like AI, blockchain, and if you look at most of our teachers, most of the generation which we have right now, we are not realizing the rate at which perhaps we are progressing towards jobs and employment, which is vastly changing. For example, the top jobs, we could be green jobs. It could be like jobs in education which focus on AI-based learning, drone technologies, or robotics, tinkering labs, STEM. In fact, if you go to most of the schools across, and I've been some of them, try to talk to them within Assam, outside Assam, teachers wouldn't, though we provide for tinkering labs, we provide for STEM labs. We see that if the teachers don't have the concept of physics, if they don't understand, despite being provided with so much of material, they don't know themselves the basic concept, they won't be able to teach the children. These things have opened up. Those which are actually lying in packages, unused, etc., people are beginning to see. But of course, it has to be a mindset change among the teachers first. Mindset change both among the administrators and in the policy making space, that we right now focusing on whether the school is there, whether the teacher is there, but what is the content and what exactly is 10 years down the line, what we need to do, and why these technologies are critical and they are not so difficult to learn. And then getting the children onto that track, right from class 5 or 6 onwards, is critical. We understand that. But the most important thing to learn, perhaps, is to change the mindset of the teachers, change the curriculum, and change the community way of thinking, that this is important. And this is not, we are not talking about things which are out of the reach. So, and it's not just, I would say, critical. It's essential for the country to grow. And this methodology, both of STEM, critical thinking, and science as a fun thing, as a thing to be done, has to start very early. We're going to try very hard. Started small, trying to create the science club of teachers who can teach science, or those who can go with modern technologies. We hope to grow that club, and we think that it's like a life skill. It's not just critical, but it's a life skill for children in the future.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'll go to Mr. Chuba now. Mr. Chuba, as earlier you mentioned that there are some structural problems which we need to address in terms of the connectivity, availability of devices, right set of content, and I think those are the challenges, a kind of organic nature, and it will take time actually to work on them. During the pandemic, we all have realized that digital can play an important role, and what Ms. Kriti was saying, that we need to basically keep on exploring digital platform, keep on exploring. So I would like to understand from you, how do you look at the role of emerging technologies, especially and remote proctoring, for online examination, admission, and assessment? Because these three things are something, especially the examination and assessment, was the huge challenge during the pandemic. So can we use some new innovative technology which can actually help us deliver this thing on the go? What is your assessment?
my first take would be like conducting online examinations. Just again, if you just as a way of conducting examination is not a very difficult thing.
Right.
The challenge is whether there will be malpractices. That's a big challenge, because examination is basically a test to not just check the person's knowledge or intelligence, etc., but to also see that the person is giving the answers. That person, it's what that person thinks or what the person's view is, the student's view is, not somebody else's, or not copying from somebody. So this is a big challenge now. So this is where, as far as proctoring for examinations is concerned, I think I was just going through some of the innovative things that are done across the world, and it was interesting to see that there is the use of AI in I think in the US, a couple of companies are already providing services. I think I've heard about HonorLog and Proctorio, and there's also the ProctorU, which is conducting exams for GRE and TOEFL. So they are using AI to make sure that the students who are appearing for these online examinations are doing it honestly, in a sense, without resorting to unfair means. So this is happening across the world, at least in the developed countries, and this is something which could be done here also. For example, I've also read about one innovative technology that is being used, and I was reading about a case study. It's the Little More Innovations Lab technology, in which tablets are provided to the students, and as and when they write the answers, that it's a real-time kind of a submission of the answers. Now, but then again, all these things again, it's about infrastructure. Now, who can afford it? It's about affordability, and it's about, when you look at the government sector, it's about investment. So it is, again, it's like a chicken and egg kind of a situation where we want to do it, but then we need to have the wherewithal and the resources to do it. As far as AI is concerned, I'd just like to add one more thing. Now, AI is a tool that can be used when there's a huge amount of data. And this is something which you can really leverage for school education. Because in school education, we have a humongous amount of data that's coming out, and especially if we start assessing children through online methods or through digital methods also, then even at the school level, and if we use that data and analyze it in the proper way, there is a possibility that we can use to identify, the weaknesses of students, or their strengths for that matter, or where students require interventions, or maybe assess their capacity, and then take remedial measures at that stage itself. So I think there's a huge, especially at the school level itself also, there's a huge potential for technologies like AI in a country like ours. So I think these are a few points that I thought, and especially like I mentioned, AI-driven examination conduction. I think the key word is about, how to prevent malpractices.
Right.
And that is something which AI can actually help us to do.
Right. Priti, now I'll come to you, and Mr. Choba raised a very valid point that when you are conducting examination not in the traditional form where you have a lot of control, the sanctity and the security of the exams becomes very important. And we noticed that there the technology, especially the integrated platforms, use of GPS, AI, or IoT technology becomes very important. Could you share, based on your experience, as to how you look at the role of emerging technology, especially for online examination conduction, assessment, given the fact that the next generation technologies are integral part of our national education policy, and we all are actually trying to promote these technologies?
So I would go 100% with Chuba sir. He is absolutely right. We cannot just do a cut, copy, paste of conventional exam as it is ditto to an online system. We will have to do it in a phased manner. So what is the right phased manner is very clearly defined in the new education policy. And our country has done a great job by defining all this in a very structured manner in the new education policy. First, continuous assessment. Why are we waiting for the year end to do an end semester exam and only looking at a summative assessment methodology? Why aren't we adopting formative assessment, which means the new education policy is telling us that do a month-on-month smaller assessment, do formative assessment, so that you are building up a whole grading system for the student in which technology can be adopted. Simple things like the test getting conducted on a mobile app. We need not go into a full-blown remote corporate platform for the school children or even for the undergraduates in the university. A mobile app like the Box mobile app, which can be available on the iStore or App Store, can be downloaded, and the student can give the exam any place, anywhere, wherein his score is getting built up so that at the end of the year, we're not waiting for the final exam to happen. The other great system that is there in the new education policy is again scanning and making sure that the images of the answer sheet are there on the cloud, which means we have something called the on-screen marking, which I would want Bihar State to adopt to make sure that your evaluators are there online. Whatever they have marked is completely inscribed on the answer sheet image, which can be referred to even after many years later. Of course, the student can refer for his immediate rechecking, but can be referred to even many years later. It's all there on the cloud. And this can be used for all the open universities and distance learning as well. And the most important thing for the school and even for higher education is diagnostic assessment. We can look at diagnosing the student's capability before even he enters the standard. He's entering from a 7th standard to 8th standard, do a diagnostic thing that is he learned all the theories, where of course the digital world will support the entire education system to do a diagnostic assessment, so they're putting the right group at the right place. So there are multiple methods in which digitized world and the cloud systems can support the entire state. However, yes, Shubha sir is right. We will have to ensure that the devices reach the student. We're not looking at very high profile things that have a tablet and that whatever we write on the tablet goes right now is live on the cloud. We would have kind of a hybrid model where some of it is offline and most of it is online. But it's time that we get on to digitize the entire country step by step. And of course, the who's who of these forum are the decision makers to take all the steps for the future.
Right. Absolutely. Mr. Chakravarti, Mr. Chuba, Ms. Preeti Malik, I think you all spoke quite well on the digital classes, the assessment, the evaluation that we need to do, and your views on IT infrastructure for digital classroom and online examination. Also setting the goals for our future endeavor in terms of the technology adoption. And Mr. Chuba brings some of very important challenges that we face in terms of the devices, in terms of the connectivity, the kind of investment that we need to make into education to ensure that people have the optimal experience digitally. And especially Ms. Malik, your views on why we need to continue, why we need to keep on experimenting with our digital platform. And digital has a lot to offer. And some of the examples shared by Mr. Chakravarti, especially in relation to the government of Assam, as to how he implemented technology, how it has helped them. So on behalf of ET government, thank you so much for being such a wonderful panelist. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for all the aspects of the topic covered by all of you. Certainly a very thought-provoking session. Let's proceed further to more such interesting discussions. Stay with us as we'll take a short break.